Honestly, it still feels like a bit of a shock that Pep Guardiola will be leaving Man City at the end of the season. He has been there for a decade, and it just felt like he would be there forever. But well, he is actually leaving now, and it is a reality we just have to accept. After a trophy-laden and record-breaking 10 years at the club, Pep will be saying goodbye after the last game of the season against Aston Villa. And interestingly, his successor has already been anointed. Enzo Maresca will be picking up from where Pep left off, and now he obviously has really big shoes to fill. But there are some big questions being asked right now. Why was he the chosen one? What made him stand out compared to his counterparts? Why has he been trusted with this huge responsibility of taking over from Pep Guardiola? We'll be answering these questions and more in this video today. This is why Pep Guardiola chose Enzo Maresca as his successor. Well, the obvious first reason is that they worked together very recently. Maresca was first hired by City in 2020 when he was brought in to coach the under-23s. He left after 1 year, moved to Parma, but then returned to Manchester in 2022, and this was when he started to work more closely with Pep. He was one of Guardiola's assistant coaches for the 2022-23 season, which means that he was one of the guys who helped the club win its first ever UEFA Champions League and also become just the second ever English team to complete the European treble. Working together on a successful project like that has a way of bringing people closer and building trust, and it is also possible that Maresca hugely contributed to the historic success City enjoyed that season, so Pep had probably already identified him as his successor from that period. And it surely also helped that Maresca has always been an ambitious fella. Some people find a comfort zone and just want to stay there all their lives, but after the success of 2023, he immediately decided he wanted to go out on his own and do his own thing, and he didn't mind starting from the bottom. So he went down to the Championship and took up the task of bringing Leicester City back to the Premier League, which of course he did in a really dominant fashion. This is another trait needed in a top manager. The desire to leave your comfort zone and challenge yourself is a sign of a manager who can survive at the very top. Maresca could easily have stayed at City, racking up trophies season after season, but he decided to leave and build his own thing from the bottom. But let's face it, one of the biggest reasons he has been chosen for this job was his time at Chelsea. It would have been difficult for him to be chosen as the new City boss if he had not previously proven himself at a top club. Even if he had the seal of approval of Pep, the directors would likely not have gone for it. But the Chelsea job, that did wonders for his reputation. He took over a young team that was down in the trenches and led them to success against all odds. In his first season as Chelsea manager, he led the club to its best Premier League start in 3 years and also helped them qualify for the Champions League for the first time in 3 years. But it wasn't just that. He won them the Europa Conference League, which meant that Chelsea became the first club to win all of UEFA's main competitions. But hey, everyone expected them to win that trophy anyway, so it wasn't that big of a deal. The most noteworthy achievement was the FIFA Club World Cup triumph. Chelsea were far from favourites going into that competition and were even lesser favourites in the final against European champions PSG, but they went ahead to beat the French giants 3-0 and win the competition. That was when people really started to put some respect on Maresca's name, because that day, in that final, he completely outcoached Enrique, who is one of the most brilliant minds in the sport. If he could do that with Chelsea, just imagine how much more he'll be able to achieve in charge of a better, more established team like Manchester City that already has a culture and mentality of winning. Another underrated reason why Maresca has been given this job is because of his audacity. That man has some balls on him, and that's one thing that makes a top coach. When Chelsea weren't giving him what he wanted, he spoke out and wasn't scared to leave the job as a result. That aside, he always spoke confidently about his team in press conferences and would often go ahead to back up his talk. Remember when people said that his Chelsea side must be ready to suffer against PSG in the Club World Cup final because of how dominant the French side are? His response to that was simple and short. Who said that? He always believes in his team, his ideas, and his tactics, and that makes it possible for him to always speak confidently. He is a coach who talks big and is always ready to back it up. And when you're trying to replace someone like Pep Guardiola, this is something that could be easily overlooked, but is actually very important. Another thing that's important is that he is brilliant and has a mind of his own. Yes, Maresca learned a lot from Pep, but he's not just a copycat. He comes up with his own ideas, approaches games differently depending on the opponent, and is able to properly platform his best players and get the best out of them. One mistake people make when trying to replace a top coach after a long stint is to try to bring someone who is exactly like them, but half the time that turns out to be a wrong decision because you just end up with an inferior knockoff. Maresca Maresca is a man of his own with a brilliant mind, which we saw on display at Chelsea. We also saw that he is a winner, which at this point is something Man City desperately need. City have grown to be a club that just cannot go long without a trophy, and whoever is coming in to replace Pep has to keep that tradition going, and it just feels like Maresca can do exactly that. Another thing that helped him secure this job is his record in big games. When you're coach of one of the biggest clubs in the world, your record in big games is very, very important, because most times it is those games that are the difference between a winning and a losing campaign. As Chelsea manager, Maresca was usually a different beast in the biggest games of the season. He beat Liverpool twice in 4 meetings, beat Spurs 3 times out of 3, lost to Arsenal and United just once each, and beat Benfica, Barcelona and PSG each time they met. His big game record is just really good. Even when Chelsea were bad, when a big game came around, you could still trust Maresca to pull a rabbit out of a hat. I mean, he held Arsenal to a draw despite being a man down for more than 50 minutes of the game. He's just special, man. When other coaches crumble under the pressure, he stands tall, and that could really help him achieve great things at Man City. But yeah, we have sung his praises throughout this video, but if we're being very realistic here, one of the reasons Enzo Maresca was chosen as new Man City coach was because the other candidates are occupied. I mean, after all, Maresca is not the only coach who has come up from the Pep school of coaching. Mikel Arteta and Vincent Kompany are also Pep students, but they're currently very happy and enjoying a lot of success at Arsenal and Bayern Munich respectively, and you just would not see them leaving those jobs at this time. So that sort of made Maresca an easy choice. If Arteta and company were available, maybe Maresca would not have gotten the nod. Who knows? Anyway, the stars aligned for him, and he'll be the new Man City boss from next season. So now that that is certain, we now want to know how you think it's going to go for him. Of course, the decision to replace Pep Guardiola was always going to be a big and very tough one. He is one of the most brilliant minds the sport has ever seen, and certainly Man City's greatest ever coach. But how do you think Enzo Maresca will perform as his successor? Will he be able to fill those very massive boots? Will his time at Man City be a huge success or a massive failure? Get in the comments and tell us what you think. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also turn on the bell notification so you never miss out on new content. Catch you in the next one. Bye.
Hey Goal 90 family, what's good? The World Cup season is here and you already know the vibes on this channel. So for everyone who's been rocking with us, Goal 90 Shop has World Cup jerseys for the whole squad. Men, women and kids. Whatever country you're repping, we've got ya. Home kits, away kits, clean classics and the loud ones. Instant match day energy. And it's love from us. Free shipping worldwide. Grab yours now and let's run this tournament together. Hey Goal 90 family, what's good? The World Cup season is here and you already know the vibes on this channel. So for everyone who's been rocking with us, Goal 90 Shop has World Cup jerseys for the whole squad. Men, women and kids. Whatever country you're repping, we've got ya. Home kits, away kits, clean classics and the loud ones. Instant match day energy. And it's love from us. Free shipping worldwide. Grab yours now and let's run this tournament together.